Welcome to another episode of Neat Network and Cool Capacity, featuring your hosts, Rick Taylor from the SCTE Central Indiana chapter and Eric Fallows of the SCTE Great Lakes chapter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 12 of Neat Network, Cool Capacity. Today's Friday, July 26th. Super hot up here in Michigan. We've had bouts of rain here and there, but extremely sporadic. Rick, how's it going, man? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. Things are going well. Same kind of weather down here. You know, it's hot. We get some rain. We get some storms come through. My yard and my garden need the rain, so I'm okay with that.
I didn't know
hopefully. Well, I say mine. It's my wife's. It's good for the kids. We'll make them go weed the garden and such. But things are good. We hosted a training yesterday. Chapter did. We went over some FDX stuff with. We brought in some folks from CommScope. Home run of a training there. Did it in person. Somewhere around 40 folks showed up for that. All in. It was a great day yesterday with that training. A lot of good questions, a lot of good information shared. Always great to do something in person and not over the webinar space. But that's kind of what's going on right now. What have you guys been up to up there, Fallows? You had a busy week.
We did. So Wednesday, we came off of our 34th annual golf outing, third annual Steve Timko Memorial Golf Outing. Extremely cool was that we brought back the golf cannons, right? But they were slightly different this year in that it wasn't like a free shot, but a team could pay like $30 and basically you land on the green, right? Just to boost your score. And then on the flip side, we also introduced the golf dartboard. And essentially, it's like a mix of three tennis balls, essentially. And it's just like darts, right? You're just swinging the club towards the dartboard, and basically it's an added up score. But if the whole team played the dartboard, then they got to hit on the ladies' tee on their next hole. And then if it was a lady that was involved with that team, then they got to hit from the 150-yarder. Trying to think of what else. Prize upgrades for this year. We had all sorts of big boy, prizes. Solo stoves, air fryers, right? Gift cards from vendors. It was awesome. And the weather at first, at the beginning of the week, we thought it was going to be raining all day. And then we ended up with the weather kind of shifting up earlier in the morning. It rained a little bit here and there, but it was a successful event. And at some point, we're going to send out the NPS survey with some pointed questions to our chapter membership. So yeah, fun times, Rick.
Yeah, I heard good. I wasn't able to make it, but I heard good things about it. Love the creativity with the golf dartboard and stuff like that. I do want to know, for personal pleasure, I suppose, what do you think the most well-received raffle prize or gift, whatever you want to call it? What do you think the best received prize was this year up there?
I think it was the Solo stove, and I believe it's the big one, right? The retail value was like $250 or something like that. And actually, one of our own members had won it. We let him keep the prize since he's an assistant board member, Dave Margetson. So.
Oh, cool. No, I'm just curious, that when you start to bring in some techs and even the vendors, everybody, you get to that end and you're doing some raffle stuff. It's always fun. Usually some good joke and laughing going on. You get a woman's putter or whatever. It is what it is. But always good to see that at the end. And then from the board perspective, at least this is how I feel, when you get to kind of give back a little bit with some prize stuff, things like that, it feels good. Watching those smiles come up, grab something and things like that. So good little give back to some of the chapter members and things like that. What's next? Golf outings behind you. What's next on the agenda?
So for the month of August, it's really planning, right? And today we actually met as a board for everybody that expressed interest in attending this year's Expo 2024 at the Georgia World Conference Center, and we've got 13 folks that are looking to go, right? At this point. So like we might be getting a passenger van, since our deal is to drive, right? Instead of I-80 this time, like it was last year out to Colorado, it'll be 75 south, and it won't be nearly as long of a drive. And I'm sure some folks may have things come up, but we like to keep that notoriety in a positive way to bring as much of our membership as we can. And we're looking to do the same for first-time folks that have never been, that have never experienced that floor, right? And how big it is. And so many of the other events that are going on too. Is just so much for our membership to partake in for that week.
So we are gonna run, or at least we're working to run a similar play as you guys, Eric, right? Can we get more of the board there? Can we get them to the event? A lot of us have been, we've walked the floor. We've had that pleasure. There's a lot of people that haven't. Can we get some of those involved so they can see the uniqueness of Expo, the size of Expo, the training content that's offered throughout the event. So hopefully, and we voted, on money and things, and we have travel money set aside. But now we're kind of revamping it to see how we can maximize that money we have set aside. See if there's things we can do. Can we carpool? Can we rent something? Can we take the Suburban that's out back that barely runs? Sure, let's do it. You guys might have to pick us up on your way down in your passenger van. We'll see. But
we can totally do that. There might be room for a couple more. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're working on that as well. And so let's, I don't want to give away too much about Expo because I have some questions for our guest, but it's on our agenda too. Not our next event, because we have the Central Indiana Golf Outing is the week before Expo. So we're gonna bring everybody into Indy that we can before Expo. It's the 19th.
I saw that. Yeah.
I mean, the team and the team and I have been working on the sponsorship, the pricing. Always love chatting with you about yours because yours is first. See how the event went and things like that. So we're excited for that. That's one of our favorite ones. Fingers crossed. You can't predict the weather. Hopefully we'll have good weather that day. We'll have a successful event, and then bam, the next week, the 24th, we're hoping to get some folks down to Atlanta for that.
So you're not going to be able to sleep for a couple weeks, basically, is what you're telling me.
That'll be all right. You can sleep when you die. I mean, let's go have some fun. Let's see some friends and some vendor folks, and let's do the SCTE thing up right.
Yeah. Before we introduce the guest, I'll say that our marker was about the same as it was last year. We had 180 golfers, 5 or 6 volunteers. But what's always scary about that, right, is we did so much pre-planning. You get the advertisement out, you get the link out. And I think in our case, we had it out a few months in advance. And then you're watching the registration, right, like with 30 days to go. And you're like, is anybody coming to my golf outing? And then all of a sudden, bam, right, the registration starts to come in. So
we had at least one board member attend your show. Of course, he's getting hounded because we haven't sent anything out yet. As of this morning, we do have a save the date out there. T-minus 7 days, Eric, you are going to get golfers. So that's what I learned over the years. You get about a week, 2 weeks out, and it really starts to fill in and come together. 100% from the local chapter perspective, it does get a little nerve-wracking. You've got the venue, you've got the money put out there, you've potentially signed a contract. You start chewing your nails, so to speak. But the vendor community, the chapter communities, at least in Indiana, and I think the same up there for you guys, really pull together on events like that. And man, we get that response when we need it. So looking forward to it this year. You should come down, Eric.
If I get a chance to, I'm going to. That's definitely in my list of things to consider and look for. And maybe I'll show up to your course in the Sasquatch suit. So we'll see.
I love it.
So Rick, you think it's time to bring up our special guest? I know kind of a disclaimer. Typically, I'm the one that's always hogging the guest spots, right? Or the guest spot ideas. And I think a couple months ago, I asked Rick, what's next? Who do we bring on next to the show, right? It's SCTE oriented. And who was your idea?
Well, put a lot of thought into this. Who better than is kind of how I looked at it. And it was really an instant thing. If you remember, I mean, you asked and I sent back my recommendation. And a lot of this is opinion. One of my favorite people at SCTE. Great person, easy to talk to. You get to see him at so many events. He's all over the place, but none other than Steve Harris with SCTE. I've known him for several years now. I never miss the opportunity to take 5 minutes of his time and just see how things are going and what he's doing next. And I couldn't think of a better person, especially being, centered around SCTE, to bring on and chat with a little bit today. Get to know him a little bit better and what he does for SCTE from the national standpoint, and get to know him a little bit better in his personal life. We're gonna pry a little bit into that and what he's into and things he likes and what makes him work. So that being said, Steve, welcome to the show today. Thank you for taking the time. Probably a short introduction there, but why don't you give us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little background, a little history into how you ended up where you're at today.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Thanks, Eric. Happy to be on board today. It's a pretty interesting story. I didn't plan to be at SCTE, but you know what? I live, eat, sleep SCTE now, and it's such a great organization. But yeah, I was a Comcaster like you guys. I spent my early part of my career at Comcast in the learning space. Loved the job. Loved Comcast. Still do. We had a saying back then was faster, I'm a Comcaster. I don't know if they use that, Rick or Eric, anymore.
Oh, that's a good one. That's the first time I've heard that one.
Heard that. Coming back. We're bringing it back.
Yeah. But yeah, my role really was to bring education to Comcast. The first year there, I built them 18 new courses. And then later on that year, they asked me if I was interested to going to the SCTE Tech Expo, or at the time, Cable Tech Expo. And I said, well, what's that? You'll love it. You should just go. And I said, okay, it sounds great. A trip to Orlando, sounds great. And so 2007 was my first Tech Expo. And like Rick was sharing earlier, when I walked in, my eyes were glazed over. I was like, wow, my gosh, look at this place. All the vendors, the show floor. It was amazing. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. That's where I think the first time I was like, wow, what is it? I want to learn everything about SCTE. And a surprise, they went to the L&D meetings at the SCTE Expo, which I encourage everybody to do. We have an L&D experience track this year at Expo, so definitely put that on your radar. And I went in and they were talking about L&D stuff. So I was like, well, I'm home. This is great. And hey, we're going to award our first Learning and Development Award for SCTE. I said, wow, okay, I'm interested in hearing about this one. So I sat right down up front and they're going on and they're talking. And then next thing you know, they say my name. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Not only did I just learn about SCTE and it was like a tidal wave, but here I'm the Learning and Development Award winner, first time ever that SCTE has done that. And that's really where I started to learn about SCTE. I came back all pumped up to Comcast. I'm like, yeah, this SCTE stuff is great. And then from that, I was like, well, how can I bring more SCTE in? That's where the North New Jersey chapter came in. Went up there and helped those guys. I was vice president of the chapter for quite some time. And really had some really good events with Comcast and Cablevision back in the day. So we really had a good time there. Great board. And then over time, started doing more stuff with SCTE. And probably something many people don't know, I was actually teaching for SCTE at night, the Cisco Academy program, the CCNA. So I was being a Cisco trainer. We had it at Comcast, but I was like, well, SCTE needs a trainer. And so at night I was doing that. So I was working for Comcast and SCTE at the same time. Not many people know that. You won't find that on my LinkedIn. Yeah. And quite frankly, I really liked what I was seeing at SCTE. I'm really passionate about learning and development. I'm really passionate about helping people in their careers and helping them make the most of their career. Obviously, we all want to make great money. We all want to be successful and we all want to grow. But how do we do that, right? And we were doing that at Comcast, and I saw a gateway at SCTE to do that on a global scale. And I resigned my position at Comcast and went over to the SCTE. That was 2009. So, not too long after I went to my first expo in 2007.
I was still an infant in my Comcast career at that point. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I wore many hats, but really my job at SCTE was to bring learning and development to SCTE. So when I came on board, really 2010, we weren't doing in-person training. We had no online courses. We were basically did a couple workshops here and there. Expo was the flagship event. Standards was something that we did with great pride and we were doing for many, many years. But we weren't in the training like we are today. And I just started writing content after content, probably for the first 5 years till we got to 550 modules of training. And so, it was great. Really transforming SCTE. I brought the first learning and management system into SCTE. We never had one. Live learning. We were doing live learning and really elevating that at the time. So many firsts. We were doing. I mentioned earlier narrated PowerPoint. People were instead of reading, they could actually listen to PowerPoints online. That was a big cool thing 14 years ago. Not today. So, but yeah, and as I've been in L&D for 30 years, so over time I did a lot of L&D stuff, got a lot of chapter stuff, worked on standards, brought a couple, the wireless, the Wi-Fi best practices standard. I brought that to the industry, IPv6, brought that to the industry. But today my focus is really commercial relationships in the commercial side of the house for SCTE. And I do that on a global scale. And what does that mean? It means that all the education, operator, vendor, etc., trade events, conferences, those relationships, I help craft and bring value to the organization, whether that's at the chapter level or at the society level or at the internal level to drive SCTE forward. And in this role, I work with about 100 operators globally. So Rick said I travel a lot. We have operators all over the planet. And so I might pop up in Argentina, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, there's Steve over there in Romania. Pretty cool ride, but it's kind of the 30,000 foot view of what I'm up to.
I can imagine that's pretty neat. Like you just said, Argentina, but seeing these other cable systems, vendors in other countries, and it's probably given you a new perspective over the years compared to what goes on, in the United States. You probably have an extra keen eye to these things now.
Yeah, 12 years ago, I went down to Argentina. I still don't speak Spanish, but 12 years ago, we started SCTE in Argentina. It's all through Latin America now. If it's Mexico City, Guyana, Guatemala, we're in all the places now throughout Latin America. But yeah, they were doing things differently than what we were doing in the U.S. and you learn about those things. But there was a lot of similarities. They're deploying DOCSIS and they're working on fiber and Wi-Fi and other things, different types of construction, those types of areas. But yeah, they hugged us with open arms. Once they learned about SCTE, they were so happy that we were there. And we have a lot of events now in Latin America. 12 years. We have 36 courses and 6 certifications in Spanish, which could benefit anybody in the United States as well if you're stronger in Spanish speaking.
That's amazing to hear how far spread out. We often get lost in our little chapter, and the big show is Expo. And, I've been following you on LinkedIn for a long time, and that's how I learned about the travel. I've seen you at local events. I've seen you stateside, and then I'm watching and I'm like, where's Steve at now? It's like finding where's Waldo, and you'll post something from a trade show or something, and I'm like, man, it's Argentina? Wow. So super cool that the organization is that widespread and that we're able to offer, multi-language trainings. I'd ask you with that travel, and I'm sure you've met some great people. What's aside from a language barrier, which is probably a constant, what do you think the biggest challenges are as we expand into some of these other countries that have these different practices and things, right? You said it's similar but different, and that makes a lot of sense. From your standpoint, what have been, maybe one of the greater challenges that you've faced trying to spread the SCTE love, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, language is there, but I do find that, just in Argentina, I was sitting next to a young lady. She had to be 24, it was about 10 years ago, and she speaks 3 or 4 languages. So what you find is that people outside the U.S., it's common to speak 2, 3, 4, 5 languages, right? Where the challenge has been is if you take Argentina, since we're talking about Argentina, how much is a triple play service cost a customer? Well, it's about $12 to $17. So coming down there and saying, hey, I want you to become a member for 105 US. I want you to take this training class for $400 US. That doesn't work too well. So, it's very hard. And, really what I'm trying to do is bring SCTE to everybody, right? I don't want anybody to be left out. And so we got to be creative on how we work with folks in Latin America because the price points are very expensive when you look at it an individual basis. So a lot of our Latin American friends, they all work with us on a corporate basis so they can get the pricing they need so everybody can get SCTE. So yeah, that's a huge challenge. Eastern Europe, same thing. You can get internet service for $5 a month, right? So how do you justify you're spending $5 on internet, but I'm going to try to take an SCTE course. It's going to cost me, $25, $30 a month. Yeah, so we don't want to have education costs be a barrier for you to excel in your career and grow your career.
Well said.
Definitely not at all what I would have thought, and truly amazing that that's something that you have to account for. The society grows and we move into new markets, or we've established in new markets, and yeah, that's not at all what I expected, but awesome to hear, and something I never would have thought of. So,
Steve, am I reading this right? 50 industry and instructor certifications?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Well, it ain't me.
All of us combined wouldn't even get close.
Yeah, I think I'm over at 75 now. So one of the things where what I try to do in my career, and as a always as a leader, is put myself in the shoes of the technician, or put myself in the shoes of the engineer. And so I'm not only just talking the talk, I'm walking the walk, right? I want to make sure that, hey, this is something that will work for you. Well, how do you know? Because I actually took the test myself. I'm standing in front of you as somebody who's gone through the steps, and I'm telling you I'm willing to hold your hand and take you through those steps, right? And we did a lot of this at Comcast, and I always think about Eric DeFebo. I don't know if you guys know him. Yeah, Eric was one of my students long time ago. He's a technician. What am I going to do with this, when I get done? I said, you can do anything you want to do. He went from technician into junior engineer within 3 months later. So the education is a key to unlock so many doors. And so if I can show you the path to do it, I always took the certifications myself. I went through the training. Plus, if I'm going to teach somebody, I want to make sure I'm an expert at it. But that's really the reason why I have those, to become the practitioner, as well as somebody that can help others to get to the same goal.
That's awesome.
What would you say with that being said, and all these certifications, and truly admire you putting the time into that, right? And how better to teach and explain and to help others learn, walking the walk. What would you say your favorite topic to train on, go to a training for, with everything that you have your hands on and your mindset on? Is there one topic or a couple topics that you're like, when it comes up, I kind of geek out over? It's my jam, so to speak.
Well, it's changed over time.
Sure.
When I came in the industry, I geeked out on IP address. Anything IP, IPv6, routing, any of that, that was my love, right? BGP, all that good stuff. And that got into head-end facilities, because head-end facilities was getting into IP. I remember sitting in Comcast in Pennsylvania in a facility, teaching a class to technicians we were configuring the SEMs. We were configuring PCs that streamed recorded DVD streams of video. We did all the IP addressing, all the subnetting, and we built a 100-channel lineup in the head end. That was part of the class. And if I could go through with the remote and check all the channels, you passed the class. So IP was like the thing. I think it went from there to Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi was a love, and I still love Wi-Fi. I think there's a lot to learn about Wi-Fi, and a lot that you can learn in Wi-Fi that applies to wireless, RF. What I really like about Wi-Fi, it is a great correlation to fiber. I just taught a class 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, right? So who teaches on a Saturday? I do. And we were talking about Wi-Fi, but if you look at optical power budgets that are used in fiber networks, they're the same thing that's used in Wi-Fi. We're still using dBms, decibel relative to a milliwatt. We're still using milliwatts. We're still working with dBs, but that also comes right over to fiber. So I think it's hard to pick one. I really geek out over fiber stuff today. I'm just loving the fiber stuff. I have tons of equipment over here. It's just learning what's coming next in fiber. I just finished an article on fiber safety, but in Broadband Library, I've been writing fiber articles for the last 4 or 5 years as the fiber source. Really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of fiber, I'm gonna kind of pivot just a smidge on everybody. So we talked a little bit about Expo, and for anybody that doesn't know, right, Expo kicks off September 24th. Saw a little article that came out, a little newsletter, a little awareness around what's happened in the 20.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't forget 23rd.
I'm not gonna miss that plug, right? Not with you on here.
Yeah. So again, being educational focused, I wanted to make sure there was opportunity for people to learn hands-on. I'm really a proponent of hands-on training, and so the 23rd to have a full day of hands-on in fiber optic, SCTE, Tempo, and Gennard. And so UCL SWIP, we're going to come in and you're going to learn the latest in fiber splicing. There's newer techniques, there's newer equipment, there's newer splice-on connectors. So we're going to showcase that. And everybody who's part of the program can get to do it, right? So we're going to have enough equipment there so everybody can participate. We're going to have the new fiber trainers from Tempo in the class. These things are cool. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's like a little suitcase. You open it up, you can splice in it, you can do optical power measurements, you can do optical light source through it, you can mess around with bend radius, you can do OTDR through it. And then we're going to have Gennard in there, and we're going to showcase the latest tools because they have a great, not only on the craft tools, but they have power meters, they have scopes, they have all kinds of great tools. They have some newer stuff that's really more what I call miniature, because remember the OTDRs used to be like this big thing. Well, now they got these little boxes that OTDR, optical power meter, visual fault locator, all this stuff in one. So they're going to be there. So, we got a killer lineup. We're going to feed you. We're going to give you an online fiber class for a year. We're going to give you a certification exam. It's a great opportunity to come to Expo, get a day of learning in, and then hit the ground running Tuesday morning.
Yes, with the chapter leader breakfast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we might take a moment to pivot here, Steve, and kind of talk about hobbies, books, music, films, things that you're interested in. Like Rick had mentioned earlier, with keeping up with you on the LinkedIn, I know that you're big into fishing, right? And you just recently caught some sort of exotic fish there, and it piqued my interest.
Yeah. I think fishing, everybody should fish. No, it started as a kid. My mother would drop me off at the lake as a kid, 6, 7, 8 years old. Nowadays you wouldn't do that, but hey, it's summertime. What do you want to do? 7 years old. I just want to go to the lake and hang out all day and fish, catch little sunnies and catfish and bass and turtles and whatever else I could drag out of the ponds and lakes around here. Yeah, really today, I love fishing. I could fish every day. I always think about, should I retire and fish? Oh, I probably couldn't afford it. I don't have a boat. I surf fish a lot. So what that means is I just go to the beach and I cast right out off the beach and fish, and I catch all kinds of stuff here in New Jersey. I'm right outside of Philly. We're catching striped bass right off the beach. We're catching a drum, which is really cool. You actually hear the drum as they're in your hand as you catch them. You You can hear the drum sound. Fun fact, scales of the drum are so strong they make guitar picks out of them. A lot of times we throw them back, but once in a while these are good to eat too. A bluefish, we catch cow nose rays, which is interesting. It's a ray where the face looks like a cow, and so we catch them right off the beach, and they're really hard to catch. And yes, the tail can go in your back and cause some damage. So they are dangerous, the rays. And narrow nose rays, skates, we catch all kinds of stuff. I've even fished in the Amazon, caught piranha, baby tarpon. We went for peacock bass, didn't catch any peacock bass, but yeah, I like to fish. And funny story is I took the piranha we caught, I took it back to the Marriott and asked the chef to cook it. And they said, no, we don't do that. And I actually had a form that I got earlier in the week from the Marriott that they would cook it. And I showed them the paper and they're like, oh, I didn't know you have that. And they actually cooked up the piranha for the first time. Very good. Very tasty, by the way. And then recently first time ever, I did some fly fishing. Never did it. My nephew talked me into it. He's like, yeah, we should go fly fishing. Much different. And we were catching brown trout, which was fun. We hired a guide because I've never done it. And he says, yeah. I said, what do we normally catch a day? He said, well, a good day would be like, we catch like two each. We end up catching 10 each.
Nice.
We nailed them pretty good. But yeah, Mark Zubin, as you know, he's still around at the foundation. Him and I share fish stories all the time. But he's like the captain of fishing. I'm working my way up. Yeah, fishing's a lot of fun. Crabbing, I don't know. Do you guys know about crabbing?
I know nothing about crabbing. Rick?
I like to eat crabs.
There you go. Yeah. So that's very popular here in Jersey as well, and I probably do that just as much. And all that is you just take take a chicken leg, tie it on a piece of string, throw it in the water. And the crabs come up and they attach. You pull up the line and scoop it up with a net. And if they're bigger than 4.5 inches, you throw them in your bucket. And hopefully you get a couple dozen and take them back and eat them up. So yeah, we do that, clamming. So fishing for me is more than just fish. It's the whole buffet.
Experience.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what we're doing, Eric. We're going to have to really start pushing for CLC to be somewhere that we can do a little fishing. And we'll get Steve down wherever we do it. We'll get Steve there. And instead of some of the other extra activities, we need to go fishing.
I can't agree.
Think of a better way to blow off a little steam, relax, than to go fishing. I'm a pond. You talked about being dropped off when you were 7 and catching anything that was in the pond or the lake. My grandfather had a small pond. The past couple of years, turtles. It seemed to be one thing I catch a lot more than I should have. Yeah, I had no idea that you were, outside of some pictures and stuff, that you embraced that whole thing, not just with fish in general. So that's really neat.
Rick, I'm thinking Florida then, right? CLC time frame. We can fish down there, reasonably. We don't want to do Maine in the month of March or April. So that'll be too cold.
Eric and Rick, one of the chapters, I think it was the Central Florida chapter, had a fishing trip as part of their activity. So they, it was a party boat, and it was like $40 a person and it included lunch. And so we all went out and caught mahi-mahi, or dorado for your Latin American folks. But yeah, we went out there, not real big ones, but that was a nice day on the boat, $40. And yeah, we went out. So I definitely, going to a pond or lake, we could bring up one of those retractable. I have a retractable fishing rod. You fold it up, put it in your suitcase, and you just show up. We just got to buy bait, and we're out there at a lake or a pond.
Skip the sporting events for next CLC. We're going fishing.
Let's do it.
I'm in. I am in. And I'm going to have to reach out to these Florida chapters because I don't remember ever getting an invite to that event. That sounds like, what a way to showcase where you're at, right? And then have some fun with it. So hats off to the Florida chapter that did that. If it was Central Florida, I'll have to ping my friend Sadie down there and be like, yo, why didn't I get the call? So But cool. Yeah, we'll work on that. We'll have to probably try to twist Robin and Nadia's arms a little bit as we go through some future CLCs and make sure there's a body of water for us.
Yeah, I always thought about starting a group. Maybe it's a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group, SCTE members that fish. And maybe we start a group. And I did it on LinkedIn, and I found people in Argentina. They're like, "Hey, we're ready to fish," and they get gar and other things out of the La Plata River down there. But maybe we can get a group together, whether it's Facebook or other social media, where SCT members, we all just talk about fishing.
I like it.
That'd be awesome. I would have a lot to learn.
Well, a lot of those folks Rudy Dauncey, big into SCTE, that guy loves fish. He plans a fishing trip at least once a year. So yeah, I'm sure there's tons and tons of members out there that would jump on board and share fishing stories. I'd only share lies because that's the kind of fisherman I am. But I don't need to hold up a 3-inch. So, but no, cool. Steve, what other activities, things do you do for fun in your spare time? Which seems like it might be pretty limited. But maybe the couple hours you have on a Sunday when you're not fishing, what kind of things do you like to do outside of work and training and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, one thing I'll share with you, I'm not a TV watcher. I don't watch TV. So I do have quite a few activities I like. And you mentioned gardening. I have a garden. I have several ponds with fish. So I like everything about fish. So I have koi pond, but I like gardening, planting flowers, tomatoes, all that stuff. So I like working out in the garden. I can actually be in the backyard all day, just messing around, mowing the grass, trimming, all that stuff. I would put gardening up there. I love scuba diving. Again, fish. Everything's connected to fish. But I love scuba diving, snorkeling. I mean, I could just snorkel all day, just like seeing the different species of fish. And nothing's better than seeing a flounder just laying on the ground there right in front of you. How pretty they are. Because when you pull them out of the water, you don't see how pretty they are. I mean, they have flounder there with all these blue speckles over top, and how they actually take off and swim away underwater. Actually see a barracuda in the water is really, really cool. I just recently was doing some snorkeling in the Cayman Islands, and just to see a lionfish, it's really cool to see this stuff. So a lot of those activities, and then I love skiing. Skiing is totally not related to fish, but it took me. So let's see, my daughter is 20. It took me. Well, she will be 20. It took me almost 19 years to get her to finally ski with me, but I was skiing by myself, and skiing by yourself is not that fun. So my daughter now, I got her up to speed where she's skiing, and nothing's better than skiing. I like downhill skiing. It's just fun. It's an adrenaline rush. And again, all these activities, what they have in common is peacefulness, quiet, great place to reset. Nothing. Like in your garden, it's not about gardening. It's actually being in the garden, peace and quiet. You get to think, right?
Yeah, it's therapeutic. Yeah,
it's very therapeutic. Same thing with skiing. If you're ski by yourself, which most of the time I was, it's very peaceful, and you get to think. And I think that in snorkeling and scuba diving, you're by yourself, and you can hear your own thoughts. I think it's non-related to a hobby is I like driving, and I'll drive. It's everywhere. I don't mind driving across the country because and I don't need to listen to radio. I can just think, right? It's peacefulness. It's relaxing. Maybe that's the theme between the activities I like to do. And last but not least, and every one of these hobbies costs too much. The other one I would love to be a hobby, but I'm just not good at it, is golf. I like to play, and I just don't play enough. And my wrestling coach, who I'm still good friends with, he's a great mentor, taught me a lot and made me really who I am today. He says, "Why do you bother playing golf? You'll never be good at it playing 3 to 4 times a year." And I said, "Well, I just enjoy it. I enjoy the networking aspect, getting out there with some guys, talking, and enjoy that part. But I'll never be good at golf unless I take lessons or have more free time. So it is what it is, but I enjoy that too."
That's awesome. So for the listeners that can't see it, right, Rick, you can see it behind Steve there. It looks like he's traveled to nearly every state in the country if those pins are what I think they are, right? Like those are places you've traveled, right, Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I earned the 50 state certificate. I don't know if you know about that. So when you finish all your states, you apply. Basically, you give them money. I think it's like $25, $30, and you get a certificate. You complete all the states. So, yeah, it's my daughter who's turning 20. She's done 44 states. We as a family enjoy traveling. You know, and the reason we travel so much is 30 years ago I got into timeshares, and you know, for some people they're like, oh my God, that's horrible. I figured out a way to use the system to my favor, even renting them to pay off fees and stuff. Anyway, having a timeshare forces you to travel. Anybody on listening to this, if you have a timeshare and you don't use it, you're throwing money out the window. And if you have a timeshare and you don't invest in it, it's like having a car from 1980. You have to keep investing in it. You have to keep working on it. It's like a house, right? So if you're going to have to replace the roof at some point, what frustrates people with timeshares is that they have a timeshare that's 10, 15 years old and they haven't invested in it. And now it's changed, the rules have changed, or the program's been updated, and they're not getting all the features out of it. I found timeshare to be a great way to see the country, inexpensive way. Every time we go, we have a kitchen. We're not eating out every night. We have a living room. We can watch TV, and it's just basically having a mini house on the road versus a hotel room. So don't want to dive too much down the timeshare route, but that's the reason why we travel so much.
I think it's awesome. My family, and this was my mom and dad, got a timeshare back in the day, years and years ago, and we still hold on to it. Some family member uses it every year. We get a week, same place. You know the place, you know the people that are there, and we had a big family, 20 plus of us that all went down to Florida this year. And of all people, friend of the show, friend of the chapters from Central Florida, her friend stays in the same condo unit. And so I ran into her.
That's
like
cool.
out of nowhere. Yeah, like I'm getting ready to go out into the ocean, and I'm like, oh. So we got to chat a little bit. It was good to see her. Pretty wild,
Small world.
14 hours from home. Yeah. Bump into a friend that outside of SCTE, I probably would never know Sadie. That's how, CLC and things. She's on the subcommittee with Eric and I thought that was really neat. And to that point, it's interesting with SCTE, Steve, we were both at Comcast at the same time. Back in the day, as big as Comcast is, and this isn't a downplay or a shame on Comcast, but because of locations, there's a good chance I would have never met you in person and got to spend some time with you and get to know you a little bit more. But through SCT and being involved in the chapters, I got to meet you and learn a little bit about you and now learn a little bit more. And I got to say, every conversation I've ever had with you has been an absolute pleasure. And that's just a couple of the little things that SCTE does for folks. It's done a lot for me and then the network that I've grown. And I have to say, it's been very good for my career. And then I think personal development as well. Being part of the chapters and then getting to meet the great folks that either are behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, traveling all over the world doing the things to make things happen. Yeah, I'm glad you're where you're at, and I'm glad I definitely glad I got to meet you and spend some time with you and then spend some time today. We're running close on time, Eric. I'm going to throw it to you. I have a feeling you got something up your sleeve.
Cable dad joke time?
Yeah, let's hear what you got for the cable dad joke.
Okay, first, just to echo the sentiments that you had said, Steve was actually the first face that I remember of the SCTE, right? Like, never mind chapters and other things that were going on at the local level, but I know I had attended like a DOCSIS 3.1 training back in 2016, and we were one of the first, classes to be trained at the SCTE level. And a shout out to Steve for being like the first memory or face of that organization that I remember.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That's cool, Eric.
All right, so we'll kick it over to the joke time, but maybe we could let Steve go first if he's got any. Otherwise, I can always be the entertainment piece here. So,
Here, I got one for you. See if you like it. I'll tell you a joke about UDP, but you probably wouldn't get it. So UDP being user datagram protocol, which is unreliable.
that was good. Rick, you got any?
I never bring anything fun to the conversation.
Every
I'm just
once
here for
in
the
a
pretty
blue moon. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have one.
That's okay. Why do front-end developers eat lunch alone?
Front end developer. I don't know.
They don't know how to join tables.
Eric,
Why- Since you're talking about coding, why do Java developers wear glasses?
I don't know.
Because they can't see.
All right. Well, happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for listening in today, and look forward to episode 13 in the coming months. Right, Rick?
I do, Eric. I gotta ask you something. As always, as we wind one down, wrap one up. If you like what you hear, jump on, hit the subscribe button, follow us. We try to put some podcasts out about monthly, sometimes more, sometimes less. But Eric, what's happening in the podcast space, right? We started off on Spotify. Has anything changed there? Anything we should talk about real quick?
Absolutely. So we have a logo rebranding. It's a little more simple for trinkets and stuff like that. Let's see. So we started out on Spotify, but in about the last month or so, we expanded to YouTube. It's just audio only. And then we also expanded to Apple Music, as well as iHeart, and then some of your other, ma and pa podcasting services. But those are some of the bigger ones. So we've expanded outside of Spotify, right, for folks that might want to listen in on other platforms, depending on what you've got.
And the podcast owes that all to you, Eric. Behind the scenes, not only are you the host, co-host with me, you have definitely embraced it, and you make sure that we're available anywhere we can be. And then we will keep bringing on just phenomenal people that are in the industry, such as Steve, and do some interviews, have some fun, have a couple laughs, and learn what we can from them. So that being said, I want to thank everybody for today's time. Steve, thanks again for coming on and sharing some of your experiences and knowledge with us, and then anybody out there listening. And everybody have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.